Welcome to part 20 of my largely heraldic tour of the Canterbury Cathedral Cloister, covering Bay 28, which I have called the Canterbury and Kent Bay because its primary theme is the cathedral itself and its links to the Kentish gentry and nobility. And let us begin by orientating ourselves. It's on the northeast corner of the cloister, near to the door to the archives, and by my estimation it was constructed between January and February 1414, coinciding with the death of Archbishop Arundel of a stroke on the 19th of February 1414. The central boss and the three tableaux which surround it were all smashed by the Puritans in 1642 and were reconstructed from fragments in the 1930s by Professor Tristram. Unfortunately, a decision was subsequently taken to take moulds from them, and when the moulds were removed, the reconstructions were destroyed except for the moulds themselves. The central boss, showing the instruments of the Passion, seems to have been a particular favourite of Archbishop Arundel and also of his friend Philip Repington, the confessor of Henry IV, who adopted the shield as his personal device. Repington was enthroned as Bishop of Lincoln by Archbishop Arundel at Canterbury in 1405. And in 1408 was elected cardinal priest by Pope Gregory XII. That the boss was intended for him is apparently confirmed by the presence nearby of the arms of the other English cardinal nominated during Arundel's primacy, Robert Hallam. The three tableaux display significant scenes from the lives of three archbishops of Canterbury who were canonised. We have the martyrdom of St Thomas Becket, the martyrdom of St Alphege, and St Dunstan conversing with the devil. The fifth of the central grouping of shields at 22 is the arms of the cathedral priory, probably dating in its inception to the reign of Richard II and the priorate of Thomas Chillenden. Chillenden was the only late 14th century prior who is likely to have had any knowledge or understanding of Greek letters. Iota Chi for Jesus Christ, this being the priory of Jesus Christ of Canterbury. Archbishop Arundel had his own arms placed at 19, next to Becket's martyrdom, another shield in close proximity being what I have deduced must be the attributed arms of Richard de Lucy, the justiciar of Henry II, who was believed to be culpable in the death of Becket and who founded Lesnes Abbey in Kent as an act of contrition. The Archbishop had a version of the Lucy arms carried by one of the assassins on his magnificent episcopal seal, which we see here. At 9 are the arms of Lucy's descendants of Charlecote in Warwickshire. That this branch of the family was intended seems to be confirmed by the presence next to them at 5 of the Eagle of Hugford. Sir Thomas Lucy of Charlecote was married to Alice Hugford, whose family were tenants of the Earls of Arundel in Shropshire. William Troutbeck at 4, with his three fishers in triangle, here looking rather like eels, was another retainer of the Earl of Arundel, as well as being a King's Esquire of Henry IV. His landed base was in Essex and Cheshire. Cardinal Robert Hallam's arms are at 29. He was Archdeacon of Canterbury before Pope Gregory XII made him Bishop of Salisbury in 1407. He was first offered a cardinal's hat by Gregory XII and eventually accepted it in 1411 as the gift of Pope John XXII, who at that time was wrongly believed to be John XXIII. There was considerable papal confusion at the time, there being two popes. Hallam attended the Council of Pisa in 1409 with the intention of resolving the problem, but by a comedy of errors the Catholic world ended up having three popes. The Kentish flavour of the bay continues with Leeds Priory at 26 and with the arms of Manston at 13. The young William Manston, who was head of the family at this time, resided in Canterbury and later gave a porpoise to the monks. The arms of Roos or Ross at 17 and Ross quartering Badlesmere at 12 are for William Lord Ross of Helmsley in Yorkshire, who had extensive land holdings in Kent. He was a member of the Royal Council and a close personal friend of Archbishop Arundel. Had the peer died in the south, he expressed a wish to be buried in the new cathedral nave next to the prelate. The Malmains family at 37, with their canting arms of three left hands, were tenants of the Archbishop by night service. Close by at 33, they sponsored the placement of those of the Mereworth family, extinct in the male line, of which they were the heirs. At 24, 38 and 39 we see the three eagles of Clifford, the first two shields having a fleur-de-lis for difference, as was used by Robert Clifford of Well in Kent, who was a generous benefactor of the cathedral and buried in its nave in 1418. The plain undifferenced arms were used by Robert's brother, Richard Clifford, another Archdeacon of Canterbury, prior to his elevation to the See of Worcester in 1401. The bishop's figure and arms were formerly in the chapter house, and both men were members of the cathedral confraternity from early in the reign of Henry IV. I have stated elsewhere that when arms are repeated in a single bay, there is always a reason for it, but the reason for Robert's inclusion twice in this bay can only be to underscore his marked generosity as a benefactor. He is one of only two individuals to have had his arms beautifully rendered in the cathedral obits book. At 35, the three crescents in border are for the Kentish family of Alden, recently extinct in the male line, but the last male, Thomas Alden, still had living daughters, and his father was remembered in the cathedral obits book. Thomas's mother appears to have been a Paverley, and it must have been an Alden who placed the arms of this extinct Kentish family at number 8. Two further Kentish families remain. At 6 is Crouch, which had strong links to Canterbury, and at 15 the arms of John Cossington, another tenant of the Archbishop by night service. These arms, azure 3 roses or, were worn by the Black Prince himself, of whom Sir Stephen de Cossington was a retainer, at a tournament held in Canterbury in 1348, to the great honour of Cossington. The presence of the arms of John de Findon at 16 throws up some fascinating questions, as Findon was a religious heretic, or what we would now call a Protestant. I am convinced that his arms were here because he was a friend of Philip Repington. Repington came from Repton in Derbyshire, where Findon owned part of the manor, and the two men must certainly have known each other. Moreover, Repington himself, as a supporter of John Wycliffe, had been excommunicated in 1382 and may have been the source of Findon's own religious beliefs. Around the periphery of the bay are certain arms which fit into the themes of the adjacent bays. At 25 are the three roundels of Sir William Bessel's of Wiltshire, occurring adjacent to Bay 27, the Poynings family bay. Bessel's was a retainer of Poynings, but also of Lord Bottroe, whose arms are in this bay. The griffin of William Lord Bottroe at 18 has a striking appearance. The peer was married to Archbishop Arundel's great niece, Elizabeth Beaumont. Three shields sit in between this bay and Bay 29, which seem to be associated with this other bay. All three belong to young lawyers who were in the Lancastrian service. Bay 29 is primarily a Leventhorpe family bay, and Richard Baynard of Essex at 42 was certainly associated with John Leventhorpe, who sat at the centre of the administration of the Duchy of Lancaster. The lawyer John Gambon of Devon at 41 also had Kentish links, while John Fortescue at 40 went on to be retained by the city of Canterbury and in 1442 became Chief Justice of the King's Bench. There are only three shields which appear to be infill, in that they have nothing in common with the other shields here. At 30, the arms which have been identified as those of Lord Berkeley and are present in various other bays, I suspect might in fact be the similar arms of Kyme, as in fact they have currently been painted, these being for the Archbishop's young friend Gilbert Umfraville, Lord of Kyme. That 10, Thomas Noel of Somerset might well have been linked to Robert Hallam as Bishop of Salisbury, since he was a major landowner in that city, while at 34 I wonder if the arms that have been identified as azure across argent for Sir John Aylesbury of Buckinghamshire or his son Sir Thomas might in fact be the similar arms of St Augustine's Abbey in Canterbury, sable across argent, thereby fitting in with the Canterbury theme. You will find a great deal more information in the pages of my book, Great Cloister, A Lost Canterbury Tale, published by Archaeopress in 2020. It's more than just a book about the cloister, as it goes into considerable detail about each unique shield, tracing its origins. You will find here many of the great families of England up to the reign of Henry IV, and also the European kingdoms. It comprises over 700 pages, including 771 illustrations, 37 pedigrees and a detailed index. You are seeing here just a small selection of the pages. Shortly you will see on the screen details of how to find it. If you would like me to undertake research on your own family, I can be contacted via my personal website, drpaulfoxfsa.com. And finally, do please subscribe to my History and Heraldry channel on YouTube, which of course costs you nothing, so that you can follow additions to my list of talks.